There's a classic line in the movie Apollo 13, "Gentlemen, what are your intentions?" Do you remember that spot in the movie? The rocket has kind of blown up, and they're circling around the backside of the moon, and they're longing to go down. And the leader, played by Tom Hanks, "Gentlemen, what are your intentions? Do you want to go down, or do you want to go back home?" What are our good intentions? Good intentions. How many times have you had just a really great thought, a really godly intention, and then somehow you couldn't follow through? I promise the best of intentions. I seek to do good all the time. But it doesn't matter how hard I pursue that thought, I often fail. I want to do exercise. I want to lose weight. I like to have more prayer in my life. Occasionally, I even had a situation that came up where a very good friend of mine, I was talking to Terry and LaToya about this the other night. Very good friend of mine, Gerald Boston, goes by the name of G-Man. And G-Man and I worked for a long time in the inner city of Jacksonville doing urban ministry. And then our lives kind of went separate ways. And one day I got word that he was in the hospital over in Gainesville, and he was not doing well. And I thought, wow, I really need to go see him, but it's busy. Gainesville's a long way away. And, and I kept thinking about, I really want to go see G-Man. They said it's very serious, and you know the rest of the story. Before I got in my car and could drive over there, he died. And I felt terrible. I felt awful. It's so frustrating to me and disappointing when I intend to do good things, and I get feelings of shame and doubt, and I feel like a failure. And then when somebody does it to me, I feel let down. And so you kind of say, well, who can we count on? I think that the problem in all this is there's a disconnect between the head and the heart. The head says, be intentional, right? Do this great good thing. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for others. Yet our heart, something there is just not fully committed enough. There's a disconnect between the intent and the follow-through. In sports, athletic skills, follow through, the motion of follow through, be it throwing a football, playing tennis, it doesn't matter, all those things. Follow through is really, really important. It's even more important in our spiritual lives. Follow through is like a path to righteousness. We have to follow through. Poor follow through leads to what I call broken intentions. And it's the difference between what we think and feel and say, and what we actually end up doing at the end of the line. It seems over the past few decades, I don't know how it is for you, you tell me if this resonates a little bit, it seems what counts now, today, is what we wish. In other words, it's the intention. The intention is the yardstick, that's the measure, not so much whether we actually go through with it, whatever it was. Now, isn't that, I think, why so many people have lost faith in politics, right? And politicians, what are they good at? Intentions, right? Good intentions. It's funny we say we lose faith in politicians. Curious little phrase there. But, we give them credit for great intentions, right? But many times, it's only the intention. The accomplishments, sometimes, you get it, sometimes you don't get it. And so I have to put myself in that pool when I start, kind of pointing fingers about people that don't go through with intentions, because pastors make lots of promises. They promise all kinds of things to all kinds of people, and just like anybody else, we fail to follow through. We fail to live it out. And I think that's why some people lose faith in pastors. And maybe even in the church, because you know what? People of faith, I hate to tell you the truth, we're not exempted from this stuff, are we? We promise love. We promise acceptance. Come here, you'll be loved. We'll take you on. But our actions, if it's only in a few occasions, if they don't follow through with intentional love, people just write us off, and they use the H word, right? Hypocrite. Christian hypocrisy. Yeah, there seems to be a pattern to all this, if you haven't started to pick it out yet. And you see it in James, in the first chapter of James, just 2 verses, 14 and 15. I'm hoping this will appear on the screen. There he is. It says this: "But one is tempted by one's own desire, being lured and enticed by it. Then, when that desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And that sin, when it's fully grown, gives birth to death." The idea is that temptation is that sense of being enticed into broken desires. It lures us in a life of repeatedly going through broken intentions, trying, failing, not following through. It's sort of this recognizable pattern. Here's the pattern. I want to see if you can track this with me. Here's the pattern. Here's what it looks like. It's like we have a good intention. We want to do something really good. But we have poor follow through, and then there's a disconnect to that intention, and it leads to feelings of guilt and shame and hurt, untrustworthiness. Maybe others begin to see us as untrustworthy. And so then we start it all over again. We come up with good intentions to take care of the ones we just missed. Do you see that cycle? It just goes round and round. And this circling round is what I call ring life. Ring life. You know, I remember the first time I ever went through a revolving door. Have you ever been through a revolving door? The first, I was a little kid, and there was a bank in Jacksonville, and it had a revolving door. So I'm going in, this little kid, and I don't know what to do. And I get in there, and I'm stuck, right? I'm like, let me out. My dad's gone. Let me out. I'm in the revolving door. And I think that's that sense. If we're honest, many times our good intentions get trapped in this never-ending, revolving door of broken intentions. That lure of what I call ring life. And here's what it looks like. If we just intend, that's all we need. We'll be okay. Except what I think most of us need is not ring life. We need a life ring. And we all know the difference, don't we, between intent. I did it with the children. We can intend to help somebody, but we actually have to toss the ring in before somebody drowns. It's kind of like there's this little devil on our shoulder. We were talking about this in Alpha the other night. This little devil on our shoulder, and it's giving us the Bob Marley. You know what the Bob Marley is? Every little thing. Sing it, Terry. Gonna be That's as close as I get to singing ever in this church, okay? Every little thing, gonna be okay. Devil's saying, every little thing, gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. And if we do that, it's kind of like this lure tempts us to discount the power of that, the power of evil pulling on us. Jesus warns about it. Look at Matthew chapter 5, just a couple of verses, 36 and 37. It says this: "And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair black or white. Let your words be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than that comes from the devil." That kind of, we've got to follow through. You can't just say stuff. It really can't be in the middle, wishy-washy. So it could be Satan's bad advice to us, or just what we tell ourselves to feel okay, to keep on going. It may work some of the time, but it never seems to really stand up in the grand moments of our lives, where intention, follow through, is so important. I think of the movie Lord of the Rings. We're in this series now called The Lord of the Rings, and we've shown you some clips, but there's this, I've referenced it before, the classic grand moment of the whole movie there is when Frodo, the key figure who's trying to destroy this evil power, he's at the end of the journey. He spent years getting there, pain, agony, trauma, and he walks into the final place where he's going to throw this evil ring into the fire of molten lava and destroy evil forever. And he gets up right to the edge. He's reached his final destination beyond all measure, beyond all odds. He's going to destroy evil in the grand moment, only to what? He turns around and he says, "I'm keeping the ring for myself." So your heart breaks because you think he's going to do it. He's going to defeat evil. He only needs to drop the ring in the chasm. It's all he's got to do, and everything's won. And then when that grand moment comes, he succumbs to ring life. Broken intentions. He meant to do it. He wanted to do it. And ring life's going to reward him too with this just awful, crushing life that's ahead of him. Follow through in spiritual matters of life. They're so important. You know, people know me. I'm all about completion. I'm all about seeing things through. I get such a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. We hung some choir mics this weekend, Terry and I, and it was like, it's so hard. We had all these problems, but when you turned it on and it finally worked, it's such a sense of accomplishment. It's great. However, I don't seem to be able to put that at work all the time in my own spiritual life. I'd like to live like that all the time. But many times, maybe just like you, my faith aspirations, they're more like that revolving ring life, spinning round and round with broken intentions. So how close for you? How close have you come, in those intentions in your life, maybe for your family, your children, your job, your spouse, all faith. We have these grand moments. We get right up to the edge. Victory is right there. Only we pull back. And it hurts. Those broken intentions, they hurt us. And what matters the most about this whole revolving cycle is when we do this to God. I do it. We do it to God, the God who loves us. We can come so close in our spiritual lives to giving our whole heart over to God and our minds. He longs for us to do that. We get so close, right up to the edge, with some rationalized reason of why we can't go ahead and do it, why we can't go ahead and have a more full relationship with God. Ask for more filling. Maybe filling our lives with gifts through the Holy Spirit. Maybe it's expanded service in the ministry of Jesus Christ, the church. It could be anything, really, but then it's just that maybe it's fear, it's lack of strength, confidence, feeling of unworthiness, all of that. Or just temptation to succumb to ring life, the Lord of the Ring. That's the bad news. So the question is breaking this never-ending cycle really possible? Yes. The answer is yes. But it took a grand moment. It took a huge moment. Remember that scene in the Garden of Gethsemane? This is in Luke 22, 41 through 44. Jesus pulls away into the garden. It says he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, from the disciples. He knelt down and he's praying to God. This is the grand moment. Lord, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. In other words, make this stuff go away. Yet not what I want, Lord, what you want. That's what will be done. And then it says an angel from heaven appeared to him and gave him strength. And in his anguish, he prayed more earnestly. And his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground. Do you sense the grand moment and the power of the moment? I don't know if you can get a hold of or we could ever grasp the terribleness of the conflict. The intent. Do you go through it or not? It's like Jesus is standing on the precipice, and he only needs to drop himself into the chasm of sin and death. And all is won. You see the drama? The whole plan of God is at stake in the grand moment. And if Satan succeeds in having Jesus grab hold of the ring life of broken intentions, he's offering that to Jesus. Come on, every little thing is going to be okay. You don't have to go through with it. You can avert this. If Jesus had not gone through with it, all would have been lost. We would have been lost. And there's a terrible cost. That's what Lent is about, recognizing the cost Jesus bears to make this internal connection with us, and therefore we to God. You see it in Isaiah 53, 5 and 6. But he was wounded, speaking of this prophecy, he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was laid the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. That's the throwing himself in the chasm. That's what it looked like. What he did was something we can't do for ourselves. We try. We have good intent. We'd love to do it for ourselves. But we don't have the follow-through. But he did. A follow-through of everlasting love. All the way, it goes all the way to the cross and back to life. Life wasn't taken. It's amazing. Life wasn't taken. Jesus intended to give it to you and you and you. To all of us. It was an intention to connection. You know, for us, it's just because of the brokenness of sin, our intention loses connection. We're not connected up to the actions anymore. They call Jesus righteous. I think they call him righteous because his intentions, what he knew, thought, felt, wanted to do for us, he actually did it. He achieved. It came to completion, fruition. Word equaled deed. Righteousness. And we try. I try. But we fail. We have good intentions. The rest of that passage in Isaiah 53 says, all we like sheep have gone astray, turned our own way. We give it a go. We try as hard as we can, but eventually we pull back from the edge. We all live a bit of a ring life. But Jesus takes all those broken intentions. It's wonderful. Takes the broken intentions. He buries them very, very deep. You might even say he utterly destroys them. He came to the brink. And he followed through, breaking the cycle of continual broken intentions. He came to complete us. He intended to. He intended to live for us in the fullness of that word. What that word? That's why he always talks about abundance, abundant life, springing up life, overflowing. I want to close with these. With two grand moments. One's failure, one's success. We all know the story when Jesus is arrested and Peter's there and he gets scared. He's at the precipice, but he pulls back. Jesus goes through with it. Peter runs and he hides. And you can see that grand moment, the time when he could have stood up for Jesus in the grand moment. He fails and he feels terrible shame, guilt. He's broken. He's never going to make it as an apostle. He's done. He's living ring life, right? But then he gets a second chance, doesn't he? And it happens one morning along the Sea of Galilee. Peter's there, and he meets Jesus. And they kind of have a little time together that morning. And the beauty of this grand moment is Jesus has done something. There's been a change. Jesus has broken the cycle of death, including the revolving door of broken intentions. This time, Peter doesn't run. His grand moment comes, and he opens up his heart, and he receives the fullness of life Jesus offers. And it starts with two words, powerful. Jesus says, "You're forgiven." You're forgiven. And it leads to a new purpose and power and strength and intentionality for Jesus. He's on a new path. He's on a new path for spiritual follow-through. He's leading on to abundant life. He's going to help some others get there too. That more perfect life God's calling for. So here's the point. They say faith is believing in things unseen. I think that has some correctness to it, but a better explanation may be this. Faith is confidence in intentions, not ours, God's. intentions. We can get out of this ring life. We don't have to keep living round and round broken intentions. So this morning, no matter what your intentions are when you walked in this store, no matter what your intentions are in your spiritual life, no matter how many of those were broken in the past, grand ideas, grand moments that never came to fruition, we're given a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance and a fifth chance. Grand moments to be intentional for Jesus. We only need ask. Let's pray.